let's talk about next steps and what this document might reveal. Is LIV dead? I mean, as a doorknob or what?
Yeah, I think, you can never sort of say completely like, yeah, of course it's gone, of course it's done. I mean, my instinct would be that it is unlikely that LIV will continue beyond 2023.
Right.
It's certainly beyond 2024. Who knows kind of exactly how attached to the future of LIV Yasser Al-Rumayyan is. I think what the document says is that there's going to be, an analysis, a data-based analysis about the future of LIV going forward. Now, anybody who's sort of followed this stuff is kind of understands that LIV isn't making any money. In fact, they've lost massive amounts of money. And so in the language is saying we'll make a good faith assessment on the benefits of team golf in general. I think that some kind of team golf thing will survive. Mm-hmm. And so whether, it sort of morphs into something else where, Dustin Johnson still gets a team or Brooks Koepka still gets a team. And then eventually like Tiger Woods has a team and Rory McIlroy has a team. I could see that sort of being part of it going forward. I do not think that LIV, as it's currently structured, will exist at all sort of competing against the PGA Tour. It's just silly to think that like the PGA Tour and Jay Monahan or whomever ended up in that chair, if Jay isn't coming back from this health scare that he's had, would want the PGA Tour to compete against itself for audience, for purses, for, sponsors or anything like that. So I'd say most likely not. But, there's other people out there who believe for sure that Yasser Al-Rumayyan is so invested in this in this entity moving forward that, maybe he could sort of say, look, we'll throw another $2 billion into this if this is kept around. Well,
and I'd imagine for those LIV Tour players that do have Yasser's phone number, a few texts have gone in and say, hey, what's the plan on getting us back our tour card here? Because I'm looking at this document and I don't see too much in there that lays out exactly how that's going to happen. And that is a huge aspect of this in order for everybody to get back together and play golf in the same organization. Kevin, what do you got for me on that one?
Yeah. So what we do know is that LIV can't recruit any more players basically through the end of 22. So if you're one of these people who follows this stuff on Twitter and you still see rumors about like John Rahm might go to LIV or Patrick Cantlay might go to LIV, that's not going to happen at least until the end of 23. Mm-hmm. I think that it is very murky about how those players will be able to sort of apply for reinstatement and who will sort of make up the committee that decides what they sort of have to do to come back. Is it that they have to go start on the Corn Ferry Tour, that they've lost their status? Is it that they're not eligible for equity that might be divided up amongst the players in this new sort of, investment, this new business, NewCo, what they're calling right now? I don't think it's likely that they can actually find players. I think that was sort of something thrown around a while, like, oh, you might have to pay back some of your stuff. I doubt that's going to happen. I think that it's more likely that it just won't be, eligible for certain bonuses. And I think that what's probably almost a certainty is that not all players who left for LIV will be treated equally. I think if I were Phil Mickelson and I wanted to play on the PGA Tour, which I don't know that he does anymore, I would be kind of nervous about that ever happening, because if you're one of the players who filed a lawsuit against the PGA Tour and the members, and they had to hire lawyers and sort of had to do their own depositions and be dragged into sort of this stuff, I think they're going to be pretty bitter about someone who left, got a bunch of money, and basically like has been calling out the sort of people over and over again and kind of antagonizing everyone. If I were Ian Poulter or Lee Westwood, I might say like, yeah, you know what? I don't know that I'm ever going to get to play PGA Tour golf again. But if you're Brooks Koepka or Dustin Johnson or Cam Smith or somebody who's kind of gone about their business and hasn't tried to pick fights and hasn't sort of joined the lawsuit, I think eventually you will see them back. And what that kind of path is, I don't know. But I think that most of the players probably want them back for the sort of betterment of the whole product.
And then, of course, the whole idea whether this deal gets to, a shot to go through or stays intact. Big date coming up on July 11th. The U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut and ranking member Ron Johnson of Wisconsin has invited Jay Monahan, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, and Greg Norman to appear in front of that committee. I imagine His Excellency has no intention of appearing in front of the United States Senate. What about everything else here? How does this document stand up? Or unless I shouldn't put words in Yasser's mouth here, or his hand raised. I'm just wondering, what do you got for me there on that?
I think that's the biggest unknown of all, is like what the sort of, congressional oversight and the Justice Department oversight will kind of feel about this agreement. There's a lot of people that feel like initially, and certainly based on, Jay Monahan said something afterwards of like, it was a chance for us to take a competitor off the board, that there's no way that would pass regulatory muster, that these two, entities that were previously, fighting in court over the idea of whether they're a monopoly, that them joining forces would certainly make them a monopoly. And there's obviously like a lot of tension around the politics of it. The PGA Tour were the people who brought the 9/11 families into the sort of discussion and kind of used them as an emotional, sort of prop to hope to rally their players and their support against, LIV. And now, that's upset a lot of people in Congress who really don't care about the golf future of it. They want to sort of make it clear that they're the sort of ultimate kind of deciders in all this. And so you're right. I don't suspect that Yasser Al-Rumayyan would sit and answer questions in front of Congress. And whether that further enrages people who are sort of going to have to kind of approve this stuff was kind of fascinating to see it play out. I think that the document here that we sort of saw is purposely vague for those reasons, because they don't have a lot of the details. Even like today, the players are seeing some of the details for the first time. So it's kind of fascinating to think that like some of this stuff the players didn't even know while the media was still getting a look at it, and they're ultimately the ones who have to vote to kind of help it move forward with the policy board. So all of that is like, the Rumsfeld thing of like known unknowns. Yeah. Like that's definitely a known unknown going forward, is how ultimately, hard Congress is going to sort of push this investigative stuff, because ultimately, like, the United States wants to play nice with the Saudis. So there's a reason that like Tony Blinken was just in Riyadh, the Secretary of State. And so they're not, there's going to be pressure from the administration, from other members of Congress who are pushing back on this stuff to not, sort of block this deal, because ultimately our country is still, beholden to oil in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate, most important piece of information is not known right now, which is the valuation of the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour that spits out a number that the Saudis are going to put on the table. Like, we don't even know that number, assuming it starts with a 2, it might be starting with a 3 in billions. And then just, there's a couple of names that are left blank, right, for a crucial committee that's being formed to have both the LIV and PGA Tour interface, right? Am I not mistaken? As well?
No, you're correct. And also, let's not, like I mentioned this before, but like we don't even know if Jay Monahan is actually going to be around to be the commissioner of this whole thing, or the CEO, I guess.
Right.
We know that Yasser is going to be the chairman, but he's also the chairman of Newcastle United. He's the chairman. He basically runs Aramco, which is the state-run oil company. He's involved in a lot of things. And so it's not like Yasser can step in and say like, all right, well, I'll run the day-to-day operations of Newco. Like, that's not going to happen. He has too many other sort of things going on here. So if Jay's not able to sort of continue going forward, or if the players are in too much of an uproar and they don't want him, who's going to step in and take that position? I doubt it's going to be like Jimmy Dunn or Ed Hurley. So they're going to have to find someone likely from outside the organization to do it. And what does that mean going forward? Like, is that person going to sort of evaluate things the same way that Jay might? It's all going to play out, I think, over the next 6 months or a year. Like, we're just sort of in the beginning of this, much less. And if let's say the agreement falls apart, like, what does that mean? In terms of like this agreement says they can't sue each other over again, that the lawsuits are done. But if 6 months from now the Saudis are like, all right, well, that didn't work out, and we're glad that we're not being sued anymore, but we're still going to go and try to sign John Rahm, like, that will sort of upend things again.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.